That was also special about that is every time I came to Watauga when I was going to school here, I was either walking or on my bike or my mom was dropping me off. And today I got to drive my mom here. She's with us. Everybody say hi, Mrs. Lewis.
Hi, Mrs. Lewis.
So, yes, I am a mama's boy. That's why my mom is still here with me. So that's that. But I want to talk to you about a couple of different things. And let's do it this way. I'll tell you just a little bit about me, my path, what I've done, what I'm doing now, and the lion's share of this, I hope, is a chance for you to ask me questions. And I see no cards, which makes me really excited. You know, one of the things I've learned, the older people get, the less you need to talk at them, the more you want to talk with them. And you guys are coming into your own as young adults, so I hope that you have a lot of questions for me today. But let me just kind of briefly sort of talk to you about sort of my story. Went to Hardeman, so right on the way. Went here, went to Haltom High School, went to Howard, and went to Harvard, like she described. Those things define me in varying ways, but I think the most important thing I'd say is that who I am is what I do. And I don't mean that just in terms of being a lawyer, which I'll talk to you about in a second, but it's the stuff that Miss Willoughby talked about, which is what do I actually do? How do I serve my community? What are the ways in which I try to engage the world? And so when you ask me who I am, and if I had a chance, I'd ask each of you, who are you? I would hope the answer is not just Tyler, the 7th or 8th grader. Is this 7th or 8th grade or both in here? Both, yeah. Not just Tyler, the 7th or the 8th grader. Not just Chequan, the 34th grader, wherever I am now. But what I am is a person that believes in communities. I believe that communities make us who we are. And I believe that once we come out of communities, no matter where we go, if we come back to that community, if we go to another community, the most important thing is to put everything that we have back into the places that made us who we are. Ms. Willoughby talked about my focus on certain neighborhoods. I live in Dallas now. And in Dallas, I live in a part of Dallas called Oak Cliff. Anybody ever heard of that?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, what's the perception that someone's heard of Oak Cliff? Anybody? Anybody heard? If you have none, that's fine. But have you heard any perceptions about Oak Cliff?
Yes.
Okay, my man, what's your name?
Joshua.
Joshua, what's something you've heard about Oak Cliff?
Bad.
Yeah. Anybody else? What's your name?
Ethan.
Ethan? What have you heard about Oak Cliff?
It's pretty ghetto.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, right. I mean, that's what you hear. One other person, something you've heard about Oak Cliff. My man in the back, what's your name? Juan. Juan, what have you heard about Oak Cliff? Right. Yeah. Well, when I left Harvard Law School, I decided to come back to Texas, and I wanted to pick a place where I could live. Remember my comment about orientation around communities. And so where did I pick to go live? South Oak Cliff, the blackest and the brownest part of Dallas. That is bad, ghetto, gang-related, allegedly. But a comment I want to make to you about this idea of understanding communities and pouring back into communities is, and this is going to connect to something we'll have a conversation about here in a second, is we got to be very careful with this perception game, right? How many of you have felt like at some point someone's judged you by the cover of your book and not opening you up and figuring out who you are? Who's been through that? Yeah, right? I've been through that too. And it's something I lived through when I tell people where I went to high school. You know, now that I'm back in Dallas and I talk to the kids that went to Jesuit and Cistercian and all these schools, and they say, where'd you go? I went to Watauga. I went to Haltom. They're like, what? But what they don't know, just like you may not know about Oak Cliff, is they don't know what makes up these places. When they talk about Watauga Middle School, they don't see the 7th and the 8th graders that I'm talking to right now. They don't understand that. If they did understand that, they'd understand that what this is a cradle of culture and a cradle of civilization that's going to really push you guys to the next level. And I'm one of the many. I'm not so special. I'm just one of the many examples of proof of that. And so as just a sort of a bellwether point, I want you to remember and appreciate this idea of perception not defining what your reality is. Watauga Middle School can be anything you want it to be. For me, and I'll talk to you about it here in a second, it was everything. For me, it was everything. And I hope that you take the time that you have here and make it be the same thing for you. So let me tell you a little bit about what I do, and then we'll get back into some other stuff. So I am a lawyer at Baker Botts, which is the biggest firm in Texas. And what I do is called complex business litigation. Does anyone know what litigation is? Cool. So litigation is what you see on TV, basically. If you've seen Law and Order, or if you've seen basically any movie or TV show about lawyers, the lawyers that are in the courtroom arguing, saying, "Objection, Your Honor," or the ones that are standing up in front of the jury and saying, "The defendant wants you to believe that he didn't do this." So that type of stuff, everybody follow me? That's what litigation is. And so I do complex business litigation. What that means is when one large energy company is being sued or suing someone for $1 billion, a billion with a B, that's sort of that's what I do. An example of that recently in the paper is actually a case that we just won in Fort Worth, which is a pretty big one. It was, my client was actually the Russian oil company. Everybody knows Russia, like, oh. And we were being sued by a Fort Worth family of billionaires, and they said basically that my client, the Russian gas company, had infringed upon their trade secret. And so what that means is basically they had this unique idea, and then we stole it from them and a bunch of other stuff. And so they were trying to sue for a few $1 billion. That's the work that I do. That's the level of, that's sort of the level of business at which I'm playing. And in some respects, if you want to go work at a firm, if you want to be doing this sorts of thing, people would say this is the best way to go do it, and the place that I'm doing it, and the type of work that I'm doing. And every time I have an opportunity to go talk to kids in Dallas, at places like Julius Dorsey Elementary School and Zaragoza Elementary School, they want to ask the question, how did you get here? And I tell them 3 things in particular. The first thing was Hardeman Elementary School. The second thing was Watauga Middle School. The second thing was Watauga Middle School. And the third thing was Haltom High School. So Hardeman first. Hardeman is where I really grew to understand this concept of citizenship. My mom has these little pictures of me when I was, so in elementary school I was probably 3 foot nothing. In middle school I was 4 foot nothing. Now I'm 5 foot something. So that's just generally how you can orient yourself from me. But in elementary school, my mom has these pictures of me being like citizen of the 6 weeks and all these sorts of things because I was actually well behaved. And she would probably tell you that I don't behave as well now as an adult, but that I promise you in elementary school, that's what I did. There, I learned how to just be friends with people, how to understand the world outside of my house. That stuff is really important when you're a lawyer. That stuff is really important when you're in politics, because if you're in business, if you're in politics, if you're just someone's neighbor, you don't just live in the world alone. So Hardeman Elementary School was a place where I really learned my social skills, where I learned how to get up and talk in front of people and do these things like I'm doing now, whether it was in front of Mrs. Drake in my kindergarten class or Ms. Myers in my 5th grade class talking about the magic school bus. That's what Hardeman was to me. Watauga was the place where I really learned how to deal with adversity. And not this type of adversity that people would say because we are from Watauga or because we go to Watauga Middle School. But this was the time in which, like you're probably experiencing, I was coming into my own. And I was experiencing challenges. And there are a couple things that stick out. Does anyone play football in here? Okay, yeah. Seventh graders or 8th graders or both? 8th graders, okay. You guys are bigger than I was in 8th grade. When I played football, and my mom hated it because, like I said, I was 4 foot nothing. For some reason, Coach Ward, he's not here anymore. He went to Haltom, I think, now, right? Yeah. But you guys know Coach Ward. Yeah. Fantastic. This is perfect then. Tell him I told you the story. So for some reason, we were playing, I think it was Crowley's intermediate school. So this was our 7th grade team, and we were playing like Crowley 9th graders. For whatever reason, I like to think because I had a lot of heart, Coach Ward puts me at middle linebacker in this game, which is ridiculous. If you look at me now, you can tell there was never a point in time which was appropriate for me to be a middle linebacker. So Crowley's literally running all over us. And I'm sure my mom remembers this game well. But Coach Ward goes, "Hey, Lewis, get out there and put a helmet on someone." He's probably said it to you guys before. I was like, "Yeah, Coach, okay, no big deal." So I come out there. Crowley has a running back that I promise you is in the 9th grade was somehow like 6'2", 230 or something like that. So they put the ball in his gut, predictably. He runs off the right guard, right up the middle. I go there and fill the gap. What do you think happens? Oh my God, he flattened me, as flat as this floor, okay? I get up, my helmet's turned this way. Did I tackle him? Like, what happened? He was down. I would like to think that maybe I got a shoelace or something. I don't know exactly what happened. But that was a case in which I got literally just run completely over. So cool. Adversity, right? How do you deal with that? Well, there are a couple of options. One, the next time that the play is run again, you can either olay like a matador and let him go. You can pretend like you tripped and fell and like, oh, I tried to get him. Or the third thing is to try to go and fill the hole again, right? Well, what happens when someone's running the ball really well? They keep running the ball, right? All right, so next play. I'm out there in middle linebacker. In my head, Coach Board says to me, Lewis, put a helmet on somebody. Put the ball in the Crowley running back's gut. Comes a rough right guard. I fill the hole. What happens? I did get flattened again. And I got flattened again. And I got flattened again. But the lesson I think that's important about that was every single play I was there. And if I hadn't been there to slow him down, even if I got flattened, then he probably would have scored a touchdown immediately. But so what's the takeaway from a point like that, though, is you're going to encounter adversity. You're going to be the decided underdog at points in time. And there are going to be certain situations in which you look at what's going on and you say, that challenge is just too big for me. Whereas I can't promise you what the result is going to be. What I can promise you is that there is tremendous value in filling the hole every single time. Whether it is a tough class, whether it is overcoming the perception that we have, and I think we all have heard some perceptions about our school and our city. Am I right when I say that about Watauga? Sometimes those things can feel really big, but what do I want you to do when that's the case? Fill the hole. That's the thing I want you to do, remember about that point. Second thing about this adversity concept that I'll tell you about Watauga that I want you to think about is the 8th grade awards assembly. Do we still do that here?
Yes, we do.
Boy, who doesn't like an award, right? I was so excited about being Warrior of the Year. They still give that out too?
They do.
Okay.
That's the award we have. That was Mr. Lewis.
No, I didn't win that award.
You did.
That's the adversity thing. Here's how this went. So at that awards assembly, you know, they start reading out the, you know, I think I got high academic. I got some award, Mom. I don't know what it was. I remember the pictures at my house. I would have brought it for you, but I don't have it. I had braces. I was small. I was holding a trophy. I was standing next to Miss Newting. She's not here anymore, is she?
At Holton High.
Okay, she's at Holton High. So that's what you need to know about that. But I can distinctly remember sitting there, and I guess it's Mr. Murphy was reading. This award goes to a very special young man in our school. At the time, I was student advisory board president. We had a student advisory board and a student council then, and I was the student advisory board president. He goes, this man is the student council president. And I was thinking to myself, that's weird. I'm student advisory board. He goes, and this young man is also a really valued member of the choir. And I was like, that's weird. I'm in the band. And everyone around me is like, Mr. Murphy's getting all these things wrong. And he goes on, and I'd like to present the Warrior of the Year award to Mr. Justin Whitmire. And I was like, oh, Justin, congrats. Justin, I believe, is a police officer in Haltom City now. Totally deserved the award. I was crushed. I thought I'd done everything right to be Warrior of the Year. I thought that I deserved somehow Warrior of the Year. As a 32-year-old man, I still want to be Warrior of the Year, okay? But what did I learn in that moment? This presumption of something being given to you just because you did things the right way is a really dangerous game as well. It's as dangerous as perception is. And sometimes, and this is the big point I want you to take away from that, sometimes the point is to do things well for the sake of doing them well. The accolade isn't everything. The award can't be the be-all, end-all. All the things that I did that made me feel like I deserved to be Warrior of the Year are the things that led me into a successful career at Haltom High School, that led me to Howard University, that led me into business at a young age and managing at a really high level, and that ultimately led me to Harvard Law School. So keep those things in mind. Continue to fill that hole when you experience adversity, and recognize that sometimes it is the journey, it's the thing that you're putting into your experiences, and not what you get back in the form of praise, not what you get back in the form of a trophy or a ribbon that makes you who you are. Final thing I'll talk to you about is Haltom High School. Haltom High School was where scholarship really came into focus for me. And I think in programs like this, as I understand what AVID is about, you have a real chance to start doing that here as well. So there's this service component I've talked about, there's this social skill component I've talked about, there's this overcoming adversity thing that I've talked about. The scholarship piece, we're in school, is something I don't want you to lose sight of either. At the end of the day, in this world, when you talk about I want to go from point A to point B, people are going to be looking at competence. People are going to be looking at accomplishment in this context. And people want to know that at the end of the day, if you're alone and it's you and a pencil and a pen or books or whatever it is that you're studying, that you can get the job done. What that ultimately means and how you sort of establish that and show that, though, is by the effort. Is by showing up and taking school seriously each day. Every day is not the most fun day in the world in school. I understand that. But this idea of scholarship is going to be so critical to who you are today and who you become tomorrow that I don't want you to overlook that. And it was in my public high school like Haltom, which I hear all sorts of things about now, that I learned how to write a good thesis, that I learned how to really take apart a calculus problem and deal with quadratic equations and things like that. All those things that made me graduate from Howard University with 4.0, that started at Haltom High School for me in particular. The point here I want you to understand is that wherever you guys end up, there are going to be so many people that, at least by certain notions, by certain contexts, will have a leg up on you if you let the story tell it that way. Like I talked to you, I know the kids I work with that grew up in these private schools and that do all these sorts of things. It's very easy to feel like somehow I should be finishing behind them or second to them. And it does not have to be, it should not be, and I suspect it will not be your story, because places like Hardeman, certainly this middle school, places like Haltom High School are absolutely good enough, are absolutely the right place to prepare you for whatever it is that you want to do. So I don't want to keep rambling, but I did want to make sure that I give you the context of, to the extent that anyone believes I'm successful, the reason for that is absolutely rooted in this building. And I think I've showed you why. And it is rooted in places like Hardeman and places like Haltom. I want to make sure that, you know, even if you guys didn't go to schools that I've gone to, I still tell, my mom will tell you, I still tell this story because I believe it is so important that people understand that where I come from makes me what I am. Where I come from defines me, and I'm so incredibly and unbelievably proud of this place, proud of this school district, proud of this city. And you know, I'll tell you this, I'll be frank, I expect to win my first election in 2 years. I expect to be in Washington, D.C., representing folks like us here in a couple of years. And if that happens, I will stand on the steps of the Capitol and I will talk about Watauga Middle School. I will talk about Watauga, Texas, and I will talk about you all. And when you do those same things, I hope that you consider us as well.